Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Ray from the Great Falls Public Library, and this is Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman and Skottie Young. When we had last left our devoted father on his quest to get milk for his children's breakfast, his adventures had taken him back in time, where he and his companion Dr. Steg had just removed this giant emerald from Splod, the very active but not particularly large volcano. So we were wondering if the volcano was going to erupt. We were also curious if there might be some ponies coming up in this book. So let's read it and we'll find out. I was standing on the ground, holding onto the rope ladder, when the ground shook and the very small volcano began to belch smoke and lava. "Splod is angry," shouted the thin little man. "He wants his eye back." There was a rushing wind, and the balloon jerked me up into the air high above the splurting lava. Unfortunately, I dropped the milk. I wasn't holding it tight enough. It landed on top of Splod's head. Professor Steg hauled the rope ladder up with his tail. "I've lost the milk," I told him. "That's not good," he admitted. "But I know where it is. It's on top of Splod's head, on the side of the volcano." Professor Steg said, "Good Splod, what on earth is that?" Before our eyes, another balloon, just like ours, appeared over the volcano. A man hurried down the rope ladder, and he placed a large emerald in Splod's eye, picked up the milk from Splod's head, and ran up the ladder. And the balloon vanished. The very small volcano stopped erupting as suddenly as if it had been turned off. "That was a bit peculiar, wasn't it?" said the professor. "It was," I agreed, gloom and despair and despondency overcoming me. "That man in the balloon stole my milk. We are lost in the past, with jungles and pirates and volcanoes. Now I will never get home, and my children will never have breakfast. We are doomed to float forever through the dusty air of the past in a hot air balloon." "It is not a balloon," said Professor Steg. "It is a floaty-ball person carrier. What nonsense you do talk." "Now, I think that should do the trick." He finished attaching the emerald to the box, using string, mostly, but also sticky tape, and then he pushed the red button. "Where are we going?" I asked. It seemed like the sun was zooming across the sky, as if nights were following days in a flickering strobe. "The far future," said Professor Steg. The machine stopped. We were hanging in the air above the grassy plain, with a very small gray mountain beneath us. "There," said Professor Steg. "It is now an extinct volcano. But look!" On the side of the extinct volcano was carved the face of Splod, still recognizable even though it was much eroded by time and weather. And in the single eye was a huge green emerald, the perfect twin of the one we had attached to the time machine. "Right," said Professor Steg. "Grab me that special shiny greeny stone." I went over to the side of the gondola, down the rope ladder, and pulled the emerald out of the eye socket. Below me, on the plain, a number of brightly colored ponies were gathered, and when I picked up the emerald, one of them shouted up at me, "You must be the man without the milk. We heard about you in our tales." "Why are you a pink pony with a pale blue star on the side?" I asked. "I know," said the pony with a sigh. "It's what everybody's wearing these days. Pale blue stars are so last year." Professor Steg leaned over the side of the balloon's basket. "Hurry up," he called. "If the volcano is going to go off, it will do it at any moment." The volcano made a noise like a sharp burp, and the middle of it collapsed into itself. "We thought it would do that," said the green pony with the sparkly mane. "There was a prophecy, I suppose," I said. "No, we're just very clever." All of the ponies nodded. They were very clever ponies. "I am so glad there were ponies," said my sister. Are you glad there were ponies too? I got back into the balloon basket. Professor Steg unhooked the first emerald from his time machine and replaced it with the one I had just taken from the weathered face of Splod in the future. "Do not, whatever else you might do," said the professor, "touch those two stones together." "Why not?" "Because, according to my calculations, if the same object from two different times touches itself, one of two things will happen. Either the universe will cease to exist, or three remarkable dwarves will dance through the streets with flower pots on their heads." That sounds Astonishingly specific, I said. I know, but it is science, and it is much more probable that the universe will end. I thought it would be, I said. You look so sad, Professor Stagg told me. I am. It's the milk. My children are breakfastless. The milk, said Professor Stagg. Of course. And with that, Professor Stagg pressed the red button with his heavily armored tail. There was a zoom and a thwarp and a thing, and we were hurtling through the cosmic void. And then it was dark. Very dark. Oops, said Professor Stagg. Overshot a little. Only by a week, though. Hold on. Professor Stagg leaned over the side of the basket. Excuse me, he said. Is anyone around? Only me, said a very surprised-sounding voice from below. The priest of Splod. Who is that up in the sky? Is it a bird? You do not sound like a bird. I am not a bird, said Professor Stagg. I am a marvelous, yet a mysterious and prophetic voice, telling you a mighty prophecy, so mighty that, very mighty indeed. Listen, when a huge and good-looking, spiny-backed individual... Monster, I told him. The prophecy said monster. Accompanied by a scrawny human being of revolting appearance, said Professor Stagg. That was not necessary. Lands in a floaty ball person carrier, you must not sacrifice them. You must instead take them to the volcano and give them the Eye of Splod. And this shall be the way that you shall know them. The human being will hold up some milk. Is that the prophecy, said the voice. Yes. Is there anything about crops in it? I'm afraid not. Oh, well, oh, well. Oh, well, thank you anyway, prophetic and mysterious voices from the air. I pressed the red button. Daylight. We were in the middle of a very familiar volcanic eruption. Quickly, I said, give me the emerald. A little way away, I could see the balloon being blown through the sky, while fire and ash were swept around by the wind. I could see me in the balloon, standing next to Professor Stagg with my mouth open. I looked miserable. Professor Stagg, my Professor Stagg, gave me the emerald. I raced down the rope ladder and placed the emerald back into the face's eye. Then as the volcano stopped erupting, I looked around for the milk. I knew it had landed on Splod's head when it fell. Fortunately, the milk had fallen into a small drift of volcanic ash and was unharmed. I picked it up, brushed it off, and started back up the balloon ladder. Professor Stagg pressed the button. The sky went dark. We were floating above a landscape of ominous towers and disquieting castles. It was not a friendly place. Ooh, creepy. Bats flew across the sky in huge flocks, crowding out the waning moon. I don't like this place, I told the professor. I don't see why not, he said. It looks as if it would be very nice when the sun comes up. There was a loud flut, and where the bats had been fluttering, several pallid people were now standing. The man in front had a very bald head. They all had sharp teeth. Oh my goodness, those are some scary folks. We are vampires, they said. What is this? Who are you? Answer us, or we will vivisect you. I am Professor Stagg, boomed the Stegosaurus. This is my assistant. We are on an important mission. I am trying to get back to the present. My assistant is trying to get home to the future for breakfast. At the word breakfast, all the vampires looked very excited. Oh, that's not good. We have not had our breakfast, they told us. We normally have wiggly worms with orange juice on them. Orange juice makes worms even wigglier, like wandering spaghetti. But if we cannot eat worms, we will eat assistant or even roast professor. One of the vampires took out a fork and looked me up and down in a hungry sort of way. The baldest, most bulging-eyed, rattiest of the vampires said, What is this box? This is my invention, began Professor Stagg, but I interrupted. It is to keep sandwiches in, I said. Sandwiches? Said the vampire. Sandwiches, I said, with as much certainty as I could muster. We thought it was a time machine, said the head vampire, with a sly, sharp smile, and we could use it to invade the world. Definitely sandwiches, I told him. What happens if I press this button, then? Asked the lady vampire. She had long black hair that covered most of her face and peered out onto the world with one suspicious eye. She pressed the button. We move forward in time 6 hours. See, said the professor happily, all this place needs to brighten it up is a bit of sunshine. The head vampire said "Vaught" and dissolved into a cloud of oily black smoke. So did all of his friends. Yes, I said, it's a nice place here after all, in the daylight. The professor tinkered with the jewels and the string and buttons, and then he said, I think I've got it properly fine-tuned now. This next press should bring you back to your own time, place, and breakfast. But before the tip of his tail could touch the button, a voice said, I'll explain later, the fate of the world is at stake. A hand grabbed, and the milk, which I had carried safely for so long, was gone. I turned in time to see a glimpse of a fine-looking gentleman with his back to me, holding my milk, and then the hole in space through which he had reached was closed. He said he'd explain it later, said the professor. I'd be inclined to believe him. The hole in space opened again. A voice shouted, Catch! And the milk came rocketing through. Fortunately, the milk struck me in the stomach, and in clutching my hands to my belly, I caught the milk. There, said the professor, everything is back to normal. He did say he'd explain later, I pointed out, but that wasn't much of an explanation. It's not later yet, said Professor Stagg. It's still now. It won't be later until later. He was arranging pebbles and stones and string on top of the time machine box. Final coordinates entered, he said, and then it's off to your house for breakfast. Does that mean there's a stegosaurus and a hot air balloon outside? I asked my dad. There is not, he said, for reasons that will become apparent. I think that there should have been some nice vampires, said my sister wistfully. Nice, handsome, misunderstood vampires. There were not, said my father. Would you like to press the button, said Professor Stagg. I pressed the red button. There was an ear-popping noise and a flicker of years, and I was floating in a balloon basket above the intersection of Marshall Road and Fletcher Lane. I could see our house from above. I could see the bicycles in the back garden. I could even see the rabbit hutch. We're here, I said, and I patted Professor Stagg on the back ridge plates. All right, so our heroic dad has returned home. Do you think that's the end of the story? Or do you think the Earth might still be in peril? Well, you'll have to listen to part number 4 to find out. I will see you then, guys. Take care. We miss you. Bye-bye.